Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. So today I'm going to take a look at the Transformers Legacy Evolution Wave 3 Leader Class Armada Megatron. Let me think of this figure in the comment section down below. Is it a pickup or a pass? Now let's take a look at the figure's packaging. So here we have the packaging. Starting at the very front, we have Transformers on the side. We have the Legacy Evolution logo at the bottom. We have Armada Universe Megatron in white text with a white Decepticon symbol. We have a really nice artwork shot of Armada Megatron in his robot and tank mode. If you actually do look at the top of the box, there is another Legacy Evolution logo with a QR code. If you do scan that, that will show his stats. And of course, on the side, we have a close-up of Megatron in his robot and tank mode. On the back, he transforms in 23 steps. There's several product shots showing his robot, his tank mode, and his Evo Fusion gimmick and his accessory. And on the other side of the box here, of course, we have half of the Legacy Evolution artwork. So if you do get another leader's packaging, such as Skyquick, you can put both boxes together to complete the artwork. And that is pretty much it for the packaging. So let's now get into the review. Here we have our Armada Megatron in his robot mode. Let's take a look at the details, starting at the very top with a head sculpt. We have some metallic blue for the main helmet section, with some silver for the face and some red for the eyes, and some dark gray and red for the main horn sections. And if you're worried about those breaking or snapping, don't be. They're actually made of kind of a pliable rubber plastic, so you should be fine. As for the shoulders, I do like the huge tank treads there, looking really cool and menacing. It just looks so cool how they're actually up in front. And there's actually some real rolling wheels for the tank mode, of course, mostly come into play later, not for this mode, but I really like to see that. And there's some really cool silver spikes at the top. And if you do turn to the side, there's some more sculpted wheels as well with some really nice metal gray paneling. As for the chest, overall pretty plain, mostly done in silver, black, and purple. And I really like this entire kind of skeletal section for the entire stomach and kind of chest region with tons of panels of silver and purple. I do like the mismatched design for the arms. There's actually a mismatched hand and mismatched forearms. As you can see, there's some more sculpted and detailing on this arm than the other one. And one of the hands is actually open. So if you do know why they did that, let me know in the comments. I'm actually not entirely sure if that was on purpose or just kind of for fun, because sometimes they do these type of details for just no reason. I have a few theories. Maybe they actually have one of the hands open because they might make like a Skyboom shield, or maybe like the Requiem blaster. Maybe they're doing that because they might make like a Commander class tidal wave next year. Or again, it could be for no reason. If you know the answer, of course, let me know in the comments. I just have a few guesses and theories. I could be completely wrong. As for the waist, I'm mostly done in gray and red, but of course some nice dark purple for the top of the legs. And I do like this kind of military camo green color they use for the legs themselves. And there's some more of that mismatched design. As you can see, of course, the knees are completely different. There's some venting and kind of silver paneling on this side, completely opposite on the other. And there's some really nice mechanical detailing here done in silver. And again, these details are actually also completely different as well. And overall, really nice sculpt work. And I do like all the spikes on the front of the feet there, done in gray and black. As for the back, of course, let's turn back here. We have the huge, tank turret, which I do have to say, you can really pose this in a lot of different ways that I'll actually show you. Of course, it can rotate the full 360, so it's really just up to you how you want to display and store this. I prefer, of course, one way over the other, but really it's just up to you. I'm not going to actually take a look at a lot of the details. As you can see, there's a ton of paint apps and sculpting and detailing, which looks really good, but I'm not going to say them all now because most of them are really coming to play later for the tank mode. So I'm going to save them for later, but just, of course, really clean black. Of course, you do have to, take into account there is the huge tank turret, so articulation can be a bit dicey at times that I'll, of course, talk about in just a sec. Just to make sure, of course, don't forget that there's that huge thing strapped on the back. But everything is pretty well filled in. Of course, really no gaps, nothing sticking out, no waffling. I do have a complaint about the front, though. Unfortunately, there is no panel cover for the form. Of course, the hands do kind of fold in. Most, figures, Deluxes, Voyagers typically do that for their transformation. It's typical. It would have been nice because this is a leader. You pay about $55. I really think there probably should have been a panel cover. So it's a bit unfortunate in that aspect. That's really my only complaint as of, waffling or empty-wise. Everything else is pretty well filled in. So as for articulation, of course, the head can look up and down, side to side. As for the shoulders, they can actually move in and out. Unfortunately, they actually do not tab into place. That's been one of the main complaints I've heard about this figure. I do have to say, on my copy, they actually do hold their shape pretty well. What I mean by that is I've seen several reviews where people's copies, the shoulders are so loose, they just kind of fall on their own. They just kind of fall like that on their own. So mine typically do stay. They only move if I actually move them myself, which is good. So hopefully the copy I saw, the copies I've seen, hopefully this is kind of a fluke. I've actually seen some people try and tighten them because I've seen several screws like at the base of the shoulder. So if you do get this figure and it's loose, maybe you could try and tighten it. I don't know if it'll work. Hopefully, I really don't know. But So these can move in and out, and of course these panels can actually move out as well, so you can move them forward and back. And out to the side there is also, of course, bicep rotation, elbow bend. There is also wrist rotation, which is really nice to see. As for, of course, the waist, you would actually think this would not have a waist rotation, but there is. Again, you do have to be aware there's the huge tank turret on the back, so you might have to move that out of the way, but it can rotate. The full 360, again, you might have to move the tank turret out of the way just to get some more clearance. And the legs are actually ratcheting forward and back and out to the side. There is no ratcheting out to the side though. There is rotation out of the top of the leg. There is actually ratcheting knee bend, which is really cool to see. And there is a really good ankle pivot. And I really like how they actually put some plastic in there to fill in the gap, because when they don't, it looks really odd. So very good articulation for this figure. Really no complaints at all. Really, just of course, there's several tolerance problems I've heard. Another one I'm actually about to tell you is the legs. So as you saw, of course, there is no ratchets for the leg out to the side. So I've also seen some very loose legs on this figure. So hopefully, again, that was just kind of a fluke. But mine actually seemed to be okay. I actually really don't know why they didn't put ratchets for the legs out to the side, because, of course, there's a kick forward and back and the knee bend. So it really just would have made sense to me if they just continued the ratchets for the rest of the leg. I really don't know why they didn't do that. But overall, very good articulation for a leader class figure. Pretty much no complaints. Of course, there is a wrist rotation, waist rotation. So overall, pretty good. So now for the weapon and accessories. I have to say this is probably my least favorite part of the figure, because this is a leader and it only technically comes with one, and it's just the tip of the barrel. It's this piece right here. I started with it on because, of course, that's the main way you really store it. It is cool. Of course, you can store and position the turret several different ways, which is really nice to see, but I think they had a lot of potential to give this figure a really interesting accessory. I know a lot of people have been wanting another Star Saber, because a lot of people didn't like the one that came with Starscream, and unfortunately they didn't include that. I think they could have maybe included like the, Skyboom shield, maybe the Requiem blaster, maybe some pistol, or maybe a blast effect piece, because, this is a tank. They could have made like a custom blast effect piece. I think that would have been pretty cool. I mean, they included one, with the Transmittal to Dragon Megatron and the Legacy line. I think that would have been a really good idea. So I think there was a lot of options and a lot of potential. And they didn't really take any of those options that they were given. So it's a bit disappointing in that aspect, but that's really my major complaint for this figure. But now for, of course, the ways you can store this, huge tank turret and accessories. You're actually going to have to turn to the back here, just going to turn it out to the side, move the arm out, and you can actually tuck this barrel under the arm, and of course you can move the arm back down. This is probably my favorite way of storing the blaster or the turret. This is, of course, typically how he would use it in the show. I think that looks very classic and iconic, and I think it looks really cool. And again, I do like this feature. It's really cool. It would have been really nice if he had like the Star Saber to hold alongside him, or just some other weapon. It just seems like they had so many options and opportunities that they just didn't take. I don't know. Could just be me. But overall, looks very cool. And this is also blast effect piece compatible, so you can take any effects piece from any other figure and attach on there. And again, it really would have been nice if they maybe included like a custom one or a brand new one, and it could attach to there. I think that would look really, really cool. And now for another way you can actually store this is you can actually remove this barrel tip here and just kind of leave the tank turret on the back there. Again, you can position it really any way you want, but you can actually fold in either hand. Really doesn't matter. I'm actually going to fold in this one, and there's actually now a post there, and there is the port. You can actually plug this into place and form his kind of gun arm or turret arm, whatever you want to call it. And I think that looks pretty cool as well. Probably my least favorite way of storage, but still it's a nice option. And there we go. Now, there is the last way, which I'm pretty sure you know of. Of course, I'm just going to flip the hand back out. So you're going to need quite a bit of room. Just kind of move the arms out of the way. You're actually going to extend this entire section here. Make sure this entire assembly is kind of just straight pointing like that. You're going to bring this entire assembly down. As you can see, there is a tab here, and there is a huge slot on the inside. And you're just going to rotate this entire assembly. So I do have to say, when I first got this figure, it's very tough. You might have to apply quite a bit of pressure. Don't be worried about breaking anything. I was pretty concerned when I was first transforming this. You do have to push it quite a bit to fully rotate it, so just rotate it all the way around like that. Then of course you can just tab this back into place, push the front barrel section forward, and then of course you can squeeze this entire assembly back down like that. And then, of course, you can actually bring this entire separate turret section here. There was a slot and, of course, a tab like that. That's how that connected into place. And I'm just going to quickly straighten him up like that. and then you can reattach the barrel. Of course, you could keep that on to begin with, or take it off, either way if it just makes it easier. But there we have the third and final way of storage. I think this looks so crazy and cool. This actually also does reveal several other things that could possibly mean some compatibility. There was actually several ports that were kind of covered up by that tank turret, so maybe we're going to get a tidal wave. They actually rumored this when they were revealing this figure. When they showed off this feature, they said there was several ports, and they said it was going to be compatible with someone. So maybe a tidal wave, and maybe a commander class tidal wave, or like a leader next year. I think that would be really cool. I'd love to see that. But yeah, this is the third way to store it. It's so crazy and cool. It can be a bit finicky at times. Sometimes it's a bit hard to, stay still, but this is a really cool feature that I like. But of course, I'm actually going to show you how you can, revert back to the normal way, because it's a bit complex and hard. So again, you're just going to pull this section apart like that. You're going to then push this section out. And again, if you want to remove the barrel, if it just makes it easier, just tab this turret section back into place like that. And then you're going to bring the turret section down like that, and then just rotate this entire assembly all the way back like that, and then just tab this back into place, squeeze this section here, and there we go. And let me just quickly straighten him up, just back to his neutral pose. I'm actually going to reattach the barrel back here, like that. And there we have all the ways of weapon storage. Overall, pretty fun. I just feel like they had a missed opportunity for weapons that they could have included. But maybe they're waiting on the Requiem Blaster and the Skyboom Shield. Maybe they're going to make those in like an accessory pack or like a mini compact someday. I think that would be really cool to see. But now for some comparisons. Here he is with the Armada Hotshots. Looking pretty cool side by side. Of course, he just towers over him, but I think that makes sense. He was very big in the show. He was even bigger than Optimus. And that being said, unfortunately, I do not have the Armada Optimus Prime just yet to compare him to, so we'll have to wait on that comparison, of course, for his review, not on this one, which is a bit unfortunate. But hopefully, just hopefully, I can get that very soon. And here he is with another Wave 3 figure. Here he is with the Nemesis Leo Prime. And his review is up on the channel right now. Make sure you go check that out after this one. And now for one final comparison. Here he is with another Armada figure. Here he is with Starscream. So, of course, if you wanted Megatron to have that Star Saber and he didn't include one, you could just take the Star Saber from Starscream and put it in his hand, and you could recreate that. And I think that'd be pretty cool. I actually took several pictures with it. I think it works. It's just, I really feel like he should have included one of his own. And that is pretty much it for this robot mode. So let's now get down to transformation into the tank mode. So now for transformation, what you're going to do is fold in the hands, just like this. Fold in the hands, like that. And then you're actually going to go to the shoulder section here, open up this panel, and then there is a port there, and there is a post on the inside of the shoulder. You're just going to fold that and plug that into place, then close that panel back up. You're going to bring this entire shoulder panel out. Do the same process on the other side. So just push that arm in there. Close up the panel, bring that shoulder panel out, just like that. And then what you want to do is actually open up the chest, like that, bring out this other panel, and this is actually going to, of course, tab into place. There are slots there, and tabs there, and then just tab that into place, and that will cover up the robot mode face, like that. And then what you're going to do is actually go to the back, get the tank turret section, hinge this all the way up, like that. And then what you're going to do is actually bring this section out, and then you're going to rotate all around at the waist, and then of course you can tab that back into place just like that. And then of course we're actually going to hinge the shoulders up. So use that hinge there. There is a tab there, and there is a slot right there. That's just going to slide into place like that. Same thing on the other side. There we go. And then you can bring these other panels out. There is a slot there, and there is a tab right there. That's just going to tab into place. Same thing on the other side. And then of course there is a slot there and a tab right there. Bring that down and bring that down. Now we can actually go to the legs. You're going to collapse the feet like that, and then collapse the heel spurs in like that. Then you're going to spread the legs apart, flip these panels out, and then you can actually collapse the legs in. And how this taps into place is actually several areas. There is a slot there, and there is a tab on the inside of this area here. And there's also a slot there, and there is a tab on the inside of this panel here. So that will just tab into place in two different areas, like that. And there we go. And then the same thing on the other side. And that is pretty much it for transformation. Let me just straighten him up. Let's now take a look at the details. Here we have our Armada Megatron in its tank mode. Let's take a look at the details. Starting at the very front, of course, some really cool mismatched design here. This section has a ton of panels and layers. This is a bit more simple. I do like the entire tank turret section. The barrel mostly done in black and in red. Really classic Decepticon symbol done in silver and in purple. I like this huge missile sculpted in, done in silver as well. We actually have this other turret here, which both of these are Blastoise piece compatible. I actually prefer this more compact, but if you want, you can bring that out. And I do like the shade of green they use, very military camo green-like. There's quite a bit of tread detailing on the side. There is actually 4 rolling wheels on the bottom. If you haven't seen them already, I did mention this earlier, which is really nice. I know some people wanted some actual treads for the tank, like, you know, rubberized that can actually move, which would be cool. I wasn't expecting that when they revealed this. Typically, they don't do that. I never really have seen it on a Transformers figure before, so I wasn't surprised, but I still do like the wheels. I think it's really cool. And I think it rolls pretty well across the ground. There's actually quite a few compartments and some nut and bolt detailing on this back section here, and the feet do kind of stick out the back, which some people are bothered by. I actually think it looks cool because there's kind of spikes there. I think it just adds to the really cool, rough, you know, chunky look. I think it looks really cool. And, you know, Megatron's design for Armada is just kind of weird in general, so the feet sticking out really isn't the weirdest thing, because, you know, his head is just kind of sticking out the front there, which you can see. It looks kind of ridiculous, but also works at the same time. As for, of course, his features, you know, in articulation, the barrel can move up and down. As for the main turret section, it can move side to side, and this other small turret section here can be untabbed, and you can use that if you want to. I prefer it kind of collapsed and put away, but that is just how I like to display it. As for some vehicle mode comparisons, here he is with Armada Hotshot. And yeah, this tank is pretty big, a lot bigger than I was expecting. And here he is with his second in command, Starscream, which look pretty cool side by side. And I really do hope they do some Armada figures. I know there's the Armada Optimus Prime, but if they did some more of the main cast, I think that would be so awesome. But that is pretty much it for the tank mode and comparisons. Let's now get down to reverse transformation. So what you want to do is actually go back to the legs here, just untab it from that section there, and then untab the panel. And then, of course, you're actually just going to hinge this entire assembly out, and then you can close that up. And then do the same thing on the other leg. Just hinge this entire assembly out like that. So there is a tab on the inside of this section, and there is a slot there, and there is a slot, and there is a tab underneath that panel. So just spread these out like that, close that up, and then you can bring the legs down like that. Then you can actually flip out the heel spurs and then flip out the feet like that. Same thing on the other side. Let me just quickly straighten him up and move the camera up so you can see what I am doing. Then what you're going to do is actually disconnect this entire tank turret section right here like that. Then you can rotate at the waist. Then you can just tab that back into place like that. And there we go. And then what you can do is actually lift these entire shoulder pieces up like that. Then you can untab this black section right here. So there is a tab there and a slot right there. That will just tab back into place out the chest. Same thing on the other side. Just bring those down. And then just hinge the entire shoulder down like that. Same thing on the other side. Just bring that down. And then what you can do is collapse these panels. Then you can open up the chest like that, flip this panel in, and then there is tabs here and slots on the chest itself. That will just tab back into place like that. So then we can go to these big tread sections, open up that panel there, and then you can bring the hand and arm out, close that up. Same thing on the other side. Just bring this out, close this up, and then you can flip the hand out like that. Just straighten up the shoulder. Flip the hand out, straighten up everything, and then with the turret, you know, you can kind of position this however you wish. You can have it a bit more, you know, straight down like that. That's typically how I pose it. I think that looks the best. And there we have the reverse transformation. Let's now get down to the final thoughts. Now for the final thoughts for the Transformers Legacy Evolution Wave 3 Leader Class Armada Megatron. I think overall this figure is pretty good. I don't want to discourage you from getting this figure. I highly recommend it. It's an amazing figure. I think it probably exceeded my expectations. I wasn't expecting it to like it as much as I did, and I really do like it. Transformation is actually very simple both ways. More simple than I was expecting because it's a leader. I think it's about 23 steps. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. I think it's in that general area, maybe 25. And it's very simple and fun, which some people could probably see as a downside because it's a leader. They probably want it to be complex and hard, which I think is sometimes fine. I think it's fine that we have a complex, hard figure, but honestly, if a leader is a bit simple every now and then, I think it's perfectly fine. I actually recently did review the Nemesis Leo Prime, a part of the Legacy Evolution Wave 3, and I was surprised how complex it was. I hadn't transformed that mold, the Leo Prime mold, in a while. I was like, wow, this is more complex than I was expecting. I had to pretty much relearn the entire transformation over again. So it's fine. Voyagers can be a bit more complex than leaders. I think that's fine. As for the tank mode, it's really big and bulky. Of course, both the small barrel and the big barrel of the tank are blast piece compatible, and the entire turret can rotate pretty much a full 360, which is really nice to see. I actually really like the mismatch design. The entire front tank is pretty much completely different on both sides. Of course, some areas are symmetrical, but there's quite a few areas that really stand out that are completely different, which I think is pretty cool. Not all areas of the figure have to be, completely, 100% symmetrical on both sides, and I really do like it. I also do like the military kind of camo green color they use for this tank. Very accurate to the Armada series. There's tons of surface detailing. Just overall really cool, big, chunky tank. Actually bigger than I was expecting. So for the robot mode, I think it's really cool. Really good articulation for leader class. I think the only complaint I have for the robot mode specifically is, of course, the accessories, but for that mode is, unfortunately, there is the empty or kind of hole gaps, in the forearms where the hands kind of fold in. I think for a leader, there probably should have been, some panels to cover that up, because it's a leader. If it was a deluxe, I would understand, typically there's an open gap in the forearm. We're used to that by now. For a deluxe, it's only $25, but this is a leader. I think they probably could have made that exception and put a panel there to cover it up. That would have been nice, but maybe it would have gotten in the way of the transformation, because you do fold the hands or the arms into the tank treads, so maybe it would have gotten in the way. I really don't know. But every other area, really good articulation, waist rotation. There is a waist rotation, but you do have to be aware of the huge tank turret is on the back, so it can sometimes get in the way. Just be aware of that. I do like how there's a ton of options to store the huge, tank turret on the back. Of course, you can leave it back there. You can actually take the barrel section off and plug it into the hand, so it looks like there's a blaster forming out of his arm. You can also actually hinge the entire front section of the tank onto his chest. I'm pretty sure in this show he actually used a minicon to do that. Unfortunately, there was no minicon included in this figure, which would have been a really good idea to include. You can also actually hinge just the barrel under his arm. That was another way he used the weapon in the show. Very classic, very iconic. I do like all the details. The head sculpt is amazing, very accurate to the Armada series. And if you're worried about the horns, I actually mentioned this earlier in the review, I'm going to mention it again. If you're worried about the horns, breaking off or snapping, don't be. They're actually made of kind of a rubberized plastic, so they should be fine. So for the shoulders and the tolerances, there is actually kind of a problem with that. On my copy specifically, I really haven't had that many problems, but I have seen quite a few copies where it's not as good. So the shoulders, unfortunately, don't tab into place. I'm going to say in either way and anyway, like my shoulders are fine on the copy. They typically do stay in place. They hold their shape. They're staying where they're supposed to, but I really don't know why they don't tab into place. Like, I really don't think there was anything stopping them, I guess, other than budget, but I really think there should have been like a tab or something to actually lock them into place. I think that would have been a really good idea. Unfortunately, with some other people's copies, they're like really loose. The shoulders are just kind of flap and like move everywhere. Also for the legs, there's ratchets for the legs to kick forward and back and the knee, but out to the side, there is no ratchet. So I've seen some very loose legs on this figure, so it's a bit unfortunate. So I really don't know why they didn't just continue the ratchets for the outward movements. That just kind of puzzles me as well. The same with the shoulders. I really don't know why they're not tabbed or locked into place. I really don't get that. So those complaints are just kind of confusing. Of course, not really specific to my copy, because the tolerances are pretty good. Not as good as I would want them, but they're pretty good, better than some copies I've seen. So I don't know why they did that. But overall, it's a very good figure. There is some problems and some complaints here and there, but I still think this is a very good leader that I highly suggest to pick up. And hopefully I can get the Armada Optimus Prime to have them, fight each other soon. I think that'd be really cool to see. But I do hope you enjoyed this review. Let me know what you think of this figure in the comment section down below. And of course, I'll see you next time.